I was one of 20 premium tomato seeds, carefully selected and packaged to become the next great generation of tomatoes. Sounds impressive, I know. But in reality, I've been sitting on that store shelf for almost half a year, completely ignored. And honestly, it was the shopkeeper's fault. He placed the tomato seed packs right next to the strawberry seeds. Anyone who came looking for tomatoes walked out with a basket full of strawberries instead. So I figured, this seed life of mine was pretty much over. Then one day, while I was drifting off half asleep, I suddenly felt someone lift me up. And right after that came the sound of a barcode scanner, the crinkle of a plastic bag, a car door opening, and traffic outside. Was I just chosen? I was so excited, I woke the other seeds up, and we all started dancing in celebration. But the excitement didn't last long before. Thud. Our seed packet was dropped onto the table. After that, I heard a lot of voices, both the owners and what sounded like voices coming from her phone. After eavesdropping for a bit, I learned two things. The good news was that the most beautiful woman on earth, who had just brought us home, had developed a fierce passion for growing tomatoes, recently inspired by a gardening YouTube series. Oh, I wanted to send 1,000 thank yous to the YouTuber who made that content. Thank you for growing tomatoes, seriously. The less good news? She had never grown a single plant before. This was her very first time. We tomato seeds aren't demanding or anything, but the moment I heard first time, I knew my future was going to be full of variables. A few minutes later, she opened the packet. Light flooded in, and for a second, I thought my reincarnation moment had arrived. Then we were poured into a tiny tray. She started picking up each seed and placing it into small holes on the seedling tray. It was one of those black plastic nursery trays, around 30 by 20 centimeters, divided into about 20 to 30 cells, each roughly 3 to 4 centimeters in diameter.
He inhaled deeply as if reviewing a perfume, then swallowed the whole fruit in one go.
Then it was my turn. She placed me into a little cell and covered me with a thin layer of soil. The soil was a mix of organic potting soil, peat moss, and perlite. Light, airy, gently moist, but never suffocating. Perfect for seeds like us.
We moved on, and almost immediately ran into a gap. Ferns.
A grow light. She knew how to use a grow light. I felt her measuring the distance, then positioning the lamp exactly 1 hand span above the tray. And she murmured something like,
"Leave it here for about 16 hours of light each day."
I almost cried. She even knew tomato seeds need 14 to 16 hours of light daily for strong germination. In that mix of joy and nervous anticipation, I closed my eyes and told myself, all right, let's begin. I heard water flowing somewhere nearby. Turns out, the owner had started watering us. She used a small watering bottle with tiny holes in the spout, and she watered with such a gentle hand. Each cell got only about 10 to 15 milliliters of water, so the soil around me felt just lightly moist, not soaked. The kitchen stayed warm, around 22 to 24 degrees Celsius, and I felt my whole body loosen up, so comfortable. Then, a few hours later, something inside me began to change. I was absorbing water.
But the catch? Poisonous. If not roasted or detoxified properly, it could be deadly.
The next morning, when she waters us again, my seed coat becomes softer and then begins to crack right at my tip. From that tiny crack, a little part of me slips out. It's the radical, a white, delicate root, thin as a thread, slowly crawls out of my old shell and pushes straight downward. Every time the tip of my root touches another bit of damp brown earth, my whole body feels steadier, more secure. And then, the following day, once my root has anchored firmly, another part of me, the hypocotyl, starts to appear. It rises slowly, then stretches out, curling gently like a small arc. Each grain of soil presses heavily on me, cold, damp, a little suffocating. But I know there's no other way except upward. I gather all my strength and arch even harder. Every millimeter I lift, the soil above me shifts a little, then a little more.
In a low bush, among small fish scale-like leaves, I spot a deep purple berry.
I push one more time, and my tiny shoot breaks through the surface. I have become a seedling. I stayed still for a moment, getting used to the light above me. Then, when I felt my body settling in, I slowly began to open my seed leaves. At first, they only parted by the tiniest crack. I tried again, this time a little stronger. Pop! Both cotyledons opened wide. I leaned toward the light source, trying my best to keep my stem straight, turning my leaves just right so they could catch as much light as possible. Because I knew that only by absorbing enough light could my leaves turn greener and my stem grow stronger. In that moment, I wished so badly that I could speak, just so I could brag to her that I had finally sprouted. But unfortunately, I couldn't. So I just waited patiently for her to wake up. And just as I expected, the moment she woke up, she ran straight to the seedling tray. When she saw our tiny white heads poking up, her eyes lit up instantly.
Oh my God, you guys sprouted!
You could tell from her voice just how excited she was. She had never grown anything before, so seeing a tiny sprout appear felt like pure magic to her. She whipped out her phone, snapped dozens of photos, filmed a few short clips, and even called her boyfriend to brag. Seeing her that happy made me happy too. From that day on, almost every morning she would stand in front of the tray watering us while chatting away. And each day, I grew just a little taller. My 2 cotyledons opened wider and turned greener. My roots dug deeper, and my stem slowly became sturdier. By day 15, I grew my very first set of true leaves, completely different from the seed leaves. They have a lobed shape, slightly serrated edges, and a deeper shade of green, looking exactly like real tomato leaves. Naturally, we got photographed again. This time, she even sent the pictures to her mom. We were ridiculously shy, but also happy, and felt more motivated to keep growing. In the following days, she kept the grow light on schedule and watered us just right. My stem thickened. I wasn't fragile like the day I sprouted anymore. Then came my second true leaf, my third, and soon a whole cluster forming at the top. Around day 20, I had become a proper seedling. A deep green stem covered with tiny hairs, leaves spreading confidently. I stood tall and steady in the soil, honestly, looking pretty impressive. She looked at us fondly and said that tomorrow she would transplant us into bigger pots. All of us were buzzing with excitement. That day started out like any other. In the morning before heading to work, she came to the seedling tray to water us. But it seemed she overdid it a little. I could feel the soil around my roots getting much heavier, completely soaked. I figured maybe she was watering in advance for the next day. But the next morning, she watered us the same way again, even though I still hadn't absorbed all the water from yesterday. That's when I started to worry. My roots were submerged, struggling to breathe. My stem felt heavy and droopy from the lack of oxygen. By noon, my leaves had turned pale yellow. By afternoon, the new leaves wilted. By evening, they fell off. Watching my very first leaves drop to the soil made me unbearably anxious. I was angry at her, furious even. I had tried so hard to grow strong, and she did this to me. But that night, she didn't come home. My anger mixed with worry, although the worry quickly grew larger. Slowly, the frustration inside me faded away, and I realized that if she just walked through the door, I'd forgive her immediately. Yet even at dawn, she still hadn't appeared. Eventually, I drifted into sleep, tangled in 1,000 uneasy thoughts. Early in the morning, I woke to the sound of the door opening and footsteps I knew by heart. She walked in, carrying a stack of clay pots in one hand and a big bag of soil in the other, her face flushed from hauling all that stuff home. The moment she saw us, she panicked and lifted the seedling. She felt the soil and realized it was too wet. Immediately, she apologized to us over and over, then carefully lifted each of us out of the tray. She scooped a layer of soil into the new pot, set me in the center, and buried me a little deeper. I'm a tomato plant. The deeper I'm planted, the more roots I grow. She added more soil, gently pressed it around me with 2 fingers, and finished by giving me a light watering. But this time, everything was different. She used a watering can with a long spout, aimed directly at my base, and poured only about 40 to 50 milliliters, just enough to moisten the soil evenly. My leaves and stem didn't get wet at all. The clay pot helped too. Its walls allow air to pass through. So much better than plastic pots, which hold water forever. Everything looked so professional. But right after she finished, she suddenly sat down next to us and burst into tears. She started talking. She's been distracted for 2 days because she argued with her boyfriend after finding out he's seeing someone else. Last night, she didn't come home because she went to confront him, then broke up, then ended up drinking at her best friend's place and sleeping over. She talked for a while, wiped her tears, wished us good night, and went to her room. After that day, she no longer watered us daily. She watered every other day, giving just a light ring of water around the base each time. But her mood didn't really improve. There wasn't much we plants could do, except try our hardest to get healthy again. And slowly, we truly did recover, and we grew even faster than before. By day 50, I looked almost unrecognizable. My stem was taller, thicker, and much sturdier, covered in fine white hairs. My layers of leaves were lush and vibrant, spreading wide with clear, strong veins. I could feel the energy running through me, steady, strong, and full of life. What made me realize something had changed wasn't just me, it was her. During this time, she started taking care of herself again. She cleaned the house, played music while cooking, and made an effort to meet friends, talk things out, and clear her mind. One evening, when she came home from work, she sat beside us and said that thanks to us, she had gotten through that awful stretch of her life. Hearing that made me so happy. I know she pulled herself out of the sorrow, but it warms my heart that we played a small part in keeping her from drowning in it. A few days after we recovered in our new pots, she carried each of us out to the porch. We expected a brief sunbath, but ended up spending a surprising full hour in the sun. Day 2, an hour and a half.
Day 3, 2 hours, then gradually 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours.
After about a week, I felt my body had become accustomed to the real outdoor sun. Then one sunny day, she showed up with something that looked very familiar. Gardening trowel. She smiled, bent down, and said something to us like, "It's time, guys," before carrying us out to the garden. Hearing that made me half excited, half nervous. In one corner of the garden, she had already prepared a small plot of soil. Just one glance, and I could tell it was mixed really well. Loamy soil blended with sand, organic compost, and a bit of pine bark to keep it airy, loose, and lightly moist. The top layer had been tilled thoroughly, so it was soft and fluffy. She used the trowel to dig holes just deep enough, around 25 to 30 centimeters, giving my roots plenty of room to stretch. Then she gently set me in the center of the hole, filled the soil around me, and pressed it down lightly to secure my stem. Then she watered around the base with about 1 liter of water. The water seeped down slowly, spreading sideways, cool and refreshing. Being planted out in the garden, it felt like a completely different world. Despite the prior sun exposure, I still felt dizzy facing the real outdoor elements during our first days in the garden. The sun was gentle at times, scorching at others. The wind sometimes soft, sometimes strong. And most of all, the insects. We tomatoes, like pretty much any plant, absolutely hate and fear insects. And wouldn't you know it, we got exactly what we hated. That night, after a light rain, the silence was so deep. I could hear every drop of water falling on the leaves. Then, in that silence, I heard it. Shk, 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 very close. At first, I thought it was just the wind. But then, right on the soil surface, I noticed a glistening trail catching the faint light from the backyard hallway. From within the darkness, I saw a dark brown spiral shell and a soft, slimy, glistening body slowly emerging. A snail. A big one. Really big. It crawled at an infuriatingly slow pace. Yet every time it moved, its soft body pressed against the ground, making that shk, shk sound that sent chills down the stem of a tiny plant like me. It came straight toward me without hesitation. The closer it got, the more I felt the cold radiating from its body spreading toward my base. And then it touched me. A cold, mushy, slimy lump of flesh brushed against my stem, then slowly started climbing up. I could only stand there helplessly, feeling my body stretch under its weight. Slowly, it reached my tender new leaves. I felt its tiny, rasping mouth filled with countless minuscule teeth press against the edge of my leaf. In that moment, I wished more than anything that I wasn't a tomato plant, but a Venus flytrap, so I could devour this little demon whole. And before I could even react well, I couldn't react at all. It bit me. The pain was awful. My whole body shuddered, leaves trembling. But the snail didn't just take one bite. It bit, paused, then bit again, slow, deliberate-like. It was savoring its midnight salad. I was so terrified, I thought I'd ooze sap. It kept climbing higher, aiming for the leaf above. If it made it up there, I was sure my stem would snap under the weight. All I could do was stand there, shaking. And just when I thought my life was over, a beam of flashlight swept across me. My owner was here. She'd come out to check on us tomato plants. The snail jerked a little when the light hit it, but it was too late to escape. She stepped forward, and within seconds, she spotted my leaves full of holes, the edges shredded. She bent down, shone her light, and found the culprit curled up in its shell. She put on her gloves, picked up the snail, and dropped it into a separate bucket. Then she sprinkled crushed eggshells all around my base. She said she'd just learned on YouTube that doing this would keep the slugs away, and she was right. From that day on, I never saw a single snail try to approach me again. For the next few days, she watered us every morning with just enough to soak the soil. On scorching days, she would feel the ground. If it was dry, she added more, keeping my soil perfectly moist. One afternoon, she brought out a bag of granular organic fertilizer, an NPK 5-10-10 blend. She spread a thin layer around my base and lightly covered it with soil, ensuring slow release with each watering. Thanks to this, I grew surprisingly fast. My stem stretched noticeably taller in just days. New leaves emerged wider, spreading out like welcoming arms. But fast growth comes with its own troubles. On a windy afternoon, I suddenly felt my body leaning. My stem was still soft, and the wind was strong. I was terrified I might collapse onto the ground. Luckily, she noticed right away. She rushed inside and came back with a bundle of small bamboo stakes, the kind made specifically for tomatoes. She planted them one by one, checking the wind direction as she worked, then gently tied my stem to a stake with soft garden tape. When she tied me up, it felt like someone catching you by the shoulders right before you fall. I straightened up again. In the days after, my leaves darkened into a rich green and grew thicker. The lower leaves shaded the soil, helping it retain moisture. The upper leaves reached confidently toward the sun. One morning, right at the leaf axil, I spotted a tiny green dot pushing out. I froze for a moment. A flower bud. My very first one. The next day, it grew longer, wrapped in a soft, fuzzy layer. Slowly, the tip began to open, revealing a pale hint of yellow inside. Then on a bright morning, with dew still clinging to the leaves, I heard a faint little pop. The flower bloomed. A small, bright yellow blossom right before my eyes. I had never seen anything so beautiful. And no, I'm not praising it just because it grew on me. I felt proud. I felt dignified. And honestly, a little emotional. When my owner saw that flower, she screamed like she just won the lottery. She filmed the flowers from every angle, even leaning in so close, I thought she might actually inhale the pollen. Seeing her that happy made me twice as happy. Not long after, the other tomato plants also started blooming, turning the whole corner of the garden bright yellow. Then came the time for the flowers to wither. One by one, my tomato siblings around me began forming fruit-tiny green marbles, barely the size of peas. Some even had 2 fruits at once. I was thrilled for them and eagerly waited for my own tomato to appear. But one day passed, 2 days, 3 days. Nothing. Where my flower had been, there was only a bare stem. Some spots even lost the stem entirely. I watched everyone around me grow fruit after fruit. And me? Just leaves. Nothing but leaves. I was truly sad. I felt left out. Was I too weak? Was I missing nutrients? Was it because of the snail attack earlier? I thought about it nonstop. I was so down that even the strong wind that night didn't make me sway. Then one afternoon, my owner realized that among all the tomato plants, I alone had nothing. She bent down and inspected each of my leaves. And finally, she found the problem. I was missing sunlight. Turns out, to set fruit, We need at least 6 hours of direct sunlight on our bodies.
But she had placed our pots too close together, and the taller plants had blocked all the sun from reaching me.
My petals did shake, but the pollen just wouldn't dry enough to fall where it needed to. Just like that, I had missed so many chances to make fruit. Immediately, she rearranged everything. Every afternoon, she gently shook my stem to help with pollination. I could feel the difference. Sunlight poured straight onto my leaves. The sap inside me pumped faster. New buds formed more densely. And then, my first fruit appeared. Right where a yellow flower had just fallen, I saw a tiny round dot. A small, bright green bead sitting snugly on the stem. I nearly cried. And after that, every few days, a new fruit appeared again. I watched my fruit ripen, the way a parent watches their child grow up. From a tiny seed tucked inside a little packet to a full-grown plant. And now, a result to be proud of. I don't know where my future will lead. Whether I'll become a salad, a sauce, or a topping on spaghetti. But simply having lived and grown is enough. I thought everything would be smooth sailing from here. But a tomato plant's life is never that simple. On that bright, breezy day, I swayed beside my friends, proudly showing off my plump tomatoes about to ripen. I had 3 large tomatoes, 2 green, and 1 already turning a glossy orange. Then, suddenly, a dark shadow shot past right above my head. Before I could even process what happened, a sharp peck landed straight into my best tomato. Clean, precise. I jolted, my leaves shaking wildly. Before I could recover, another peck, even harder. The pain bent my whole stem in reflex. When I finally looked up, I saw it, a little brown-gray bird on the wire, eyeing my tomato like it was debating a second bite. Its beak was still smeared with tomato juice. I froze, completely helpless. I'm a plant. I can't run or hide. It stretched toward me, beak poised for a third strike. I tensed up, bracing for impact. Then, clack! The back door flew open. The bird panicked, flapped its wings, and shot up to the fence, disappearing like it had never been there at all. My owner rushed toward me. The moment she saw my tomato, she let out a shocked, "Oh no!" My first and finest tomato, the biggest and most beautiful one, was ruined with 2 deep, ragged holes, its juices dripping away. She lifted the fruit gently, inspecting it. In a long, defeated sigh, she said it was ruined. Then she cut it off the stem. Hearing the snip of the scissors felt like being cut myself. If she was sad, I was devastated. Not because it was my only fruit. I still had 2 other healthy ones growing just fine. But that fruit was my first. Days of sun, nights of cold, healing after snails bit me, all lost because one stupid bird dropped by for a few seconds. She rushed inside for a bird net, tightened every corner, and checked each gap. Soon our whole little tomato patch was tucked neatly under the net. That night, my heart felt heavy. The pain and disappointment lingered like a bruise. But my 2 remaining fruits were still growing. New flowers were still blooming. I still had another chance. In the days that followed, thanks to the mesh net my owner put up, the garden became so much calmer. No more sudden rustling of wings. No more dark shadows swooping overhead. I could finally focus on growing, on recovering, on nurturing my fruits without constantly fearing a surprise attack. Time passed, and my 2 remaining tomatoes grew bigger each day. They slowly changed color, green to pale yellow, and to deep orange. And then one day, they blushed bright red under the sunlight like 2 tiny suns hanging from my stem. During the fruiting stage, my owner watered me very carefully. Each morning, only about 400 milliliters, dripped slowly around the outer ring of my base knot close to the stem. If the soil was still moist, she skipped watering completely. I knew she was trying to keep the moisture level stable, because tomatoes suddenly get a lot of water, will crack their skins instantly. Thanks to her gentle, consistent watering, my fruits grew firm and plump without splitting at all. Then one beautiful morning, with soft sunlight, a light breeze, and birds chirping somewhere far behind the safety of the net, She walked out with a small basket in her hand. She bent down and harvested each of my bright, fully red tomatoes. In that moment, I felt both proud and deeply moved. I did it. I bore fruit. I survived pests, survived lack of sunlight, survived the heartbreak of losing my very first tomato to a bird, and most importantly, I made her happy. After that first harvest, she cared for us even more thoughtfully, watering just enough, trimming old leaves, gently shaking new blossoms every afternoon to help pollination. I knew my journey wasn't over. I would grow more tomatoes, then more and more after that. But today's red fruit will always be the milestone I remember most. I am a tomato plant, and this is the story of my life.